Veltar stared at the blue-green planet spinning slowly on his scanner screen. Earth, they called it. Another backwater world with another primitive species that would soon bow to the Catherian Empire. He had done this 17 times before, and each time was the same. Watch, record, report weaknesses, then watch the conquest fleet do its work. The assignment briefing had been short. Standard observation mission. New species discovered in Sector 7. Catalog their military strength and report back in 60 days. War Commander Thekos barely looked up from his tactical displays when he handed Veltar the mission files. Probably another easy one. The scouts say they still use chemical propulsion. Veltar adjusted his cloaking field and moved his small observation ship into high orbit. His scanner picked up radio signals, satellite networks, and the heat signatures of what looked like military bases. Everything seemed normal for a primitive civilization. He started his recording systems and began his watch. The first human military base he observed sat in a desert area. Sand-colored buildings stretched across the flat ground, with vehicles that looked clumsy compared to Catherian war machines. Soldiers in matching uniforms moved in organized groups. Veltar had seen it all before on other worlds. He focused his long-range cameras on a training exercise. A human commander with short black hair stood near a group of soldiers. The name tag on his uniform read, Jinho. He was teaching younger soldiers how to move across open ground without being seen. Basic infantry tactics. Veltar spoke into his recorder. Primitive but functional. No energy weapons detected. Still using projectile firearms and explosive devices. The training exercise continued. Soldiers crawled under barriers, jumped over walls, and practiced working together in small groups. A female lieutenant named Mira helped organize the training. She moved with confidence, and the other soldiers listened when she spoke. Veltar was about to move his ship to observe another location when something went wrong with the human exercise. A large concrete wall had been rigged to fall as part of the training, but it fell too early. 3 soldiers were trapped underneath, their legs pinned by heavy debris. Evacuation protocol should begin now, Veltar muttered, expecting the humans to retreat and leave the trapped soldiers behind. That was standard military doctrine across the galaxy. Save the majority, accept losses, maintain unit effectiveness. Instead, Commander Jinho ran toward the collapsed wall. "Get the emergency equipment," he shouted.
"Nobody gets left behind."
Lieutenant Mira was already pulling tools from a nearby vehicle. Other soldiers dropped their weapons and rushed to help. They used metal bars to try lifting the concrete. When that did not work, they brought a small crane. Veltar watched in confusion. The trapped soldiers were clearly injured and slowing down the entire unit. Why did the commander risk everyone else to save 3 soldiers who might not even survive? "Medic!" someone shouted. A young woman named Kyung ran over with medical supplies. She crawled under the partially lifted concrete to reach the trapped soldiers, ignoring the danger to herself. "This is illogical," Veltar said to his recorder. "The unit commander is risking multiple soldiers to save 3 injured ones. This violates basic tactical efficiency." But the humans kept working. An engineer named Wu Juri rigged a hydraulic lift using parts from 2 different machines. He worked quickly, sweat dripping down his face as he connected cables and adjusted pressure valves. "I need 5 more minutes," Wu called out. "You have it," Commander Jinho replied, positioning himself to help lift the concrete manually if needed. Veltar noticed something else strange. A strategist named Nari was reorganizing the remaining soldiers, not to continue the exercise, but to form a protective perimeter around the rescue operation. She was using the emergency as a real-time training opportunity, teaching defensive positions while keeping everyone focused on saving their trapped teammates. After 23 minutes of work, they lifted the concrete enough to pull out all 3 trapped soldiers. Kyung immediately began treating their injuries while other soldiers helped carry them to safety. "Status report," Commander Jinho said once everyone was clear. 2 broken legs, 1 dislocated shoulder, multiple cuts and bruises, Kyung reported. "All stable. They will recover." "Good," Jinho nodded. "Equipment check. Make sure our rescue tools are working properly. I want a full review of safety protocols by tomorrow." Veltar replayed the recording 3 times. In Catherian military doctrine, those 3 soldiers would have been abandoned immediately. A Catherian commander who wasted time and resources on a hopeless rescue would face court-martial. But these humans had not just saved their trapped teammates. They had turned the emergency into a learning experience. They had improved their rescue procedures and their unit coordination. Most importantly, every soldier in that unit now knew their leaders would risk everything to bring them home. Unusual tactical behavior observed, Veltar recorded. Humans prioritize individual soldier survival over mission efficiency. May indicate poor military discipline or... He paused, unsure how to classify what he had seen. Over the following days, Veltar observed more human military activities. He watched Kyung treat wounded soldiers from training accidents, always staying with them until they recovered completely. He saw Wu create innovative solutions using limited resources, building communication equipment from spare parts that worked better than the original designs. Most puzzling was Nari. Her tactical planning made no sense according to Catherian military theory. She created battle plans that had multiple retreat routes, detailed casualty evacuation procedures, and contingencies for protecting civilian populations. Catherian doctrine focused on winning quickly and overwhelmingly. Human doctrine seemed focused on minimizing losses on both sides. Their military structure shows significant weaknesses, Veltar reported to his superiors during a routine transmission. Inefficient resource allocation, excessive concern for individual casualties, and tactical planning that prioritizes protection over victory. But even as he said the words, Veltar felt uncertain. He had observed 17 different species before their conquest. None of them had shown this level of coordination, innovation, and loyalty under pressure. The humans seemed primitive, but their soldiers showed a unity and determination that impressed him despite himself. War Commander Thekos responded with typical Catherian confidence. Continue observations. Identify key military leaders for priority targeting. The conquest fleet will arrive in 42 days. Veltar acknowledged the transmission and returned to his watch. 42 days to understand these strange humans who saved each other at tactical disadvantage. 42 days to figure out why watching them made him feel something he had never experienced before. Something almost like doubt. The warning lights on Veltar's control panel flashed red as his ship shuddered violently. A critical failure in the cloaking system had triggered a cascade of malfunctions throughout his small observation vessel. Smoke filled the cabin as he fought to maintain altitude. Emergency landing protocol activated, his ship's computer announced in the flat, mechanical voice of Catherian technology. Veltar gripped the control handles as his ship plummeted toward the Earth's surface. The landing was rough, throwing him against the restraining harness and sending equipment flying around the small cabin. When everything finally stopped moving, he found himself in a dense forest, his ship's hull cracked and partially buried in soft earth. He checked his equipment quickly. Life support was functional, but his communication array was destroyed and the cloaking system was completely offline. Worse, his ship's energy signature would be detectable by human sensors within hours. Veltar had trained for this scenario. The protocol was clear. Eliminate any witnesses, establish a defensible position, and wait for extraction. He checked his personal weapons and prepared to make contact with the primitive humans. The sound of approaching voices made him freeze. Two humans in military uniforms were walking through the forest, following what looked like a routine patrol route. The taller one wore a name tag reading Tay and carried what appeared to be a basic scanning device. His companion, marked Sue, had medical supplies strapped to his equipment belt. Energy reading is definitely coming from this direction, Tay said, adjusting his scanner. Could be a crashed satellite or maybe aircraft debris. Hope nobody was hurt, Sue replied. This terrain would make rescue operations difficult. Veltar prepared his weapon and activated his personal translator. According to Catherian intelligence, humans were naturally aggressive and would attack anything they did not understand. He would fire first, eliminate the threat, and secure the area. But when Tay and Sue found his crashed ship, their reaction was completely unexpected. Holy stars, Tay breathed, staring at the clearly alien vessel. This is not from Earth. Sue immediately activated his communication device. Base, this is Patrol 7. We need senior command out here immediately, and maybe the science team. Veltar emerged from behind his ship, weapon raised. The humans would attack now, he was certain. But instead, Sue stepped forward with his hands visible and empty. Are you injured? Sue asked in a calm voice. We are here to help. The words made no sense to Veltar. These humans had found an alien crash site and an armed alien being, and their first concern was whether he needed medical attention. Veltar started, then stopped. His translator was working, but he had no idea what to say. Catherian first contact protocols assumed immediate hostility. "It's okay," Tay said gently. "We know you are not from Earth. You are safe here. No one will hurt you." Within an hour, more humans arrived. Veltar expected soldiers with heavy weapons and restraint equipment. Instead, he met Major Bong, a calm older man who spoke in measured tones, and Captain Hana, who seemed more interested in making sure Veltar was comfortable than interrogating him. "We have prepared temporary shelter for you," Major Bong explained. "Medical evaluation, food if you need it, and communication assistance until we can figure out how to help you." "Help me?" Veltar repeated. "You are stranded, correct?" Captain Hana asked. "Your ship appears damaged beyond quick repair. Until we can contact your people or arrange other transportation, you are welcome to stay with us." This was not how first contact was supposed to work. Veltar had studied the conquest histories of 17 different worlds. The pattern was always the same: initial fear, then aggression, then submission or destruction. These humans were offering hospitality to a potentially dangerous alien being. They brought him to a military facility, but instead of a prison cell, he was given a small but comfortable room. A linguist named Dong spent hours working with him to improve communication, patiently teaching him human words and customs. A cultural liaison named AA brought him food, books, and even entertainment materials. "We want you to feel welcome while you are here," AA explained. "I know this situation must be frightening for you." Frightening? Veltar had expected interrogation, torture, or summary execution. Instead, he was being treated like an honored guest. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. Over the following days, military officials asked him questions about his technology and his people, but they did it politely. When Veltar refused to answer certain questions, they accepted his refusal without punishment. When he asked about human customs, they answered honestly and completely. "Why are you not afraid of me?" Veltar finally asked A during one of their daily conversations. He considered the question carefully. "Should we be afraid?" "I am armed. I am from an unknown species with unknown intentions. I could be dangerous. Are you dangerous?" A asked. The simple question stopped Veltar completely. What? Do you intend to harm anyone here?" "No," Veltar admitted. "But how can you know that?" "We cannot know for certain," he said. "But we can observe your actions. You have been respectful, cooperative, and honest about what you can and cannot tell us. You helped our medical team understand your physiology so they could treat a minor injury. You shared information about your ship's technology to help our engineers contain a small energy leak that could have been dangerous." Veltar remembered those incidents. He had helped the humans because it seemed logical, not because he felt any obligation to them. But apparently his actions had created trust instead of suspicion. "Besides," A continued, "what would we accomplish by treating you badly? If your people come looking for you, would we want them to find that we had hurt you? If you truly are dangerous, would threats and violence make you more or less likely to cooperate with us?" The logic was undeniable, but it was completely different from Catherian thinking. Catherians maintained order through strength and fear. These humans seemed to be building cooperation through respect and mutual benefit. A week into his stay, Veltar made a discovery that changed everything. While helping repair his ship's communication system, he accidentally accessed his mission files where human technicians could see them. Dong read the data and immediately called for Major Bong and Captain Hana. Veltar prepared for the worst. Now they knew he was a spy, sent to study their weaknesses before an invasion. Now they would see him as the threat he actually was. Major Bong read through the files carefully. "You were sent to observe our military capabilities." "Yes," Veltar admitted. "And report back to an invasion fleet." "Yes." Captain Hana looked up from the data. "When is this fleet supposed to arrive?" 34 days, Veltar said quietly. The humans exchanged glances. Then Major Bong did something that stunned Veltar completely. "Thank you for telling us the truth," he said. "This gives us time to prepare. Would you be willing to help us understand what we are facing?" They were not going to execute him. They were not going to torture him for information. They were asking for his voluntary cooperation to save both their species from an unnecessary war. For the first time in his life, Veltar began to understand why Catherian intelligence reports about other species were so often wrong. Veltar had expected imprisonment after revealing his true mission. Instead, The humans assigned him a cultural guide named Young and a security liaison named Jun. Young's job was to help him understand human society. Jun's job was to keep both Veltar and the humans safe during the process. "We want you to see who we really are," Young explained as they walked through a human city for the first time. "Not just our military, but our whole civilization. Maybe that will help prevent the war that is coming." The city was unlike anything Veltar had seen on other worlds. Cytherian cities were efficient but sterile, designed for maximum productivity and control. This human city was chaotic but vibrant, full of different architectural styles, varied commercial districts, and public spaces where people gathered for no apparent productive purpose. "Why do humans waste so much space on parks and entertainment?" Veltar asked as they walked through an area filled with trees and walking paths. "Is it waste if it makes people happier?" Young replied. "Happiness improves productivity, creativity, and social cooperation. These spaces are investments in human well-being." They stopped to watch a group of children playing on equipment designed for climbing, swinging, and sliding. Parents sat nearby, talking and laughing while keeping watch over their young. Veltar noticed that the parents came from different ethnic backgrounds and economic levels, but they interacted as equals. No segregation by status or genetic background, Veltar observed. "Why would there be?" Young asked. "Efficient resource allocation. Superior individuals should not waste time with inferior ones." Young stopped walking and looked at Veltar with genuine surprise. "Who decides which individuals are superior?" The question had no good answer. In Cytherian society, superiority was determined by the state council based on genetic markers, intelligence tests, and productivity measurements. But as Veltar tried to explain this system, he realized how arbitrary many of those measurements were. They continued their tour, visiting markets, schools, and community centers. At each location, Veltar observed the same pattern. Humans of different backgrounds working together, sharing resources and helping each other solve problems. In the market, he watched a vendor named Yoon organize disaster relief supplies for a region hit by severe weather. She coordinated with dozens of other vendors, transportation companies, and volunteer organizations. The logistics were complex, but she managed everything through cooperation, rather than centralized command. "How does she maintain authority without coercion?" Veltar asked June. "She doesn't have authority over these people," June explained. "They choose to work with her because she is effective and fair. If she makes bad decisions, they will work with someone else instead." At a school, Veltar met a teacher named Ho, who was leading a discussion about historical conflicts. The students were encouraged to question official interpretations and develop their own understanding of events. This could lead to social instability, Veltar pointed out. "Teaching people to question authority creates disorder. Teaching people to think critically creates informed citizens," Ho replied. "We want people who can recognize bad leadership and work to improve it." "But what if they question good leadership too?" Ho smiled. "Then good leadership will have good answers for their questions." The concept was revolutionary to Veltar. Cytherian education focused on obedience and efficiency. Human education seemed designed to create independent thinkers who might challenge any authority, including their own leaders. That evening, Veltar attended a community meeting where citizens were debating how to respond to the coming invasion. He expected panic, chaos, and demands for immediate military action. Instead, he found organized discussion and careful planning. A military leader named Bin presented defense options while emphasizing the importance of protecting civilian populations. A diplomat named Gang discussed attempts to establish communication with the approaching Cytherian fleet. A scientist named OK proposed sharing human technology and culture as a way to demonstrate peaceful intentions. "These people know they face conquest or annihilation," Veltar whispered to Young. "Why are they not demanding preemptive strikes?" "Because war should be the last option, not the first," Young replied. "We prefer solutions where everyone survives." The meeting continued for hours. Citizens asked difficult questions, proposed alternative strategies, and voted on resource allocation. No single leader made unilateral decisions. No one was silenced for disagreeing with popular opinion. During a break in the meeting, Veltar found himself talking with a man named Dal, who introduced himself as both a soldier and a philosopher. Dal asked questions about Cytherian society that made Veltar uncomfortable. "Why does your empire conquer other worlds?" Dal asked. To acquire resources and expand Cytherian influence. But conquest requires enormous resources. Would it not be more efficient to trade with other civilizations? Trade implies equality. We are superior to other species. Superior in what way? Again, Veltar found himself struggling to answer. Cytherian superiority was simply accepted fact in his society, but Dal's questions forced him to examine the assumptions behind that fact. We have better technology, more efficient government, and stronger military forces. Those are tools and systems, Dal said. What about the people themselves? Are Cytherians inherently better than humans? We are more logical, more disciplined, and less emotional. I see, Dal nodded. And you believe logic without emotion leads to better decisions? Obviously. Tell me, Veltar, why did you help our engineers repair the energy leak in your ship? It was not logical to assist potential enemies. Veltar thought about it. The leak could have harmed innocent people. So you made an emotional decision to protect people you barely knew, and that decision happened to be the right one. The conversation continued late into the night. Dal did not argue with Veltar or try to convince him that humans were superior to Cytherians. Instead, he asked questions that helped Veltar examine his own beliefs and assumptions. By the end of their discussion, Veltar realized something disturbing. Many of his fundamental beliefs about Cytherian superiority were based on propaganda, rather than evidence. The humans he had met showed creativity, cooperation, and moral reasoning that matched or exceeded anything he had seen in Cytherian society. The next morning, Young took him to observe a crisis response exercise. A simulated earthquake had damaged part of the city, and multiple organizations were practicing coordinated relief efforts. Veltar watched teams led by individuals named Sim, Yun, and Bin work together seamlessly, despite coming from different agencies and backgrounds. How do they coordinate without a single command structure? Veltar asked. They train together, they trust each other, and they share the same goals, Young explained. Sometimes that works better than rigid hierarchy. As the exercise concluded, Veltar realized that his mission had failed completely. He had come to study human weaknesses and instead discovered human strengths that Cytherian military doctrine could not account for. Worse, he was beginning to question whether the coming invasion was necessary or justified. That evening, he sent a message to War Commander Thekos. Require additional time for complete assessment. Human capabilities more complex than initial reports indicated. The response was immediate and predictable. Assessment period extended to 28 days. Conquest fleet remains on schedule. Do not allow primitive species to confuse your judgment. But Veltar's judgment was already changing. He was beginning to understand what Dal meant when he said humans fight to protect what they love, rather than to dominate what they fear. And for the first time in his life, he was starting to question which approach might actually be superior. The Cytherian investigation fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Veltar watched from the human military command center as 12 massive warships took position around Earth. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything in the human space program, bristling with weapons that could level entire cities. War Commander Thekos opened a communication channel to Earth's governments. His image appeared on screens around the world, tall, angular, with the gray skin and red eyes that marked Cytherian nobility. Primitive species of the third planet, Thekos announced in the flat, emotionless tone that Cytherians used for official communications. I am War Commander Thekos of the Cytherian Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for integration into our civilization. Any resistance will result in total annihilation. Veltar sat beside General In, Earth's senior military commander, and watched the human response unfold. He expected panic, immediate surrender, or desperate military mobilization. Instead, he saw something he had never witnessed before: organized determination. All civilian populations to evacuation centers, General In ordered calmly. Priority on children, elderly, and disabled individuals. Military units to defensive positions. Diplomatic corps, maintain communication channels with the Cytherian fleet. General Wan, the head of Earth's space defense program, was coordinating with scientists and engineers to adapt their primitive weapons for use against advanced alien technology. General Sol was organizing supply lines and logistics for what looked like an extended conflict. You cannot defeat them, Veltar said quietly to General In. Their weapons are centuries ahead of yours. Their tactics have conquered 17 different worlds. Maybe, General In replied, but we cannot surrender our people to slavery without a fight. The first exchange of fire came when Catherian shuttles tried to land troops in major population centers. Earth's fighters rose to meet them, using strategies that Veltar recognized as Nari's innovative tactical planning. Instead of direct confrontation, the human pilots used hit-and-run attacks, forcing the Catherians to fight in small groups rather than large formations. Lieutenant Colonel Min led evacuation efforts in the largest city. Veltar watched in amazement as she organized the movement of millions of people, with minimal panic or confusion. Citizens helped each other, shared resources, and followed evacuation orders even when it meant leaving behind everything they owned. Why are they not looting? Veltar asked. In times of crisis, individuals should prioritize their own survival. They are prioritizing survival, General Wan explained. But human survival depends on the survival of the community. Individual selfishness would get everyone killed. The battle for the planet's primary spaceport was led by Colonel San, who used Earth's primitive technology in ways that confused Catherian battle algorithms. He turned commercial aircraft into kamikaze weapons, used construction equipment as improvised artillery, and converted the port's transportation systems into elaborate traps. Major Hyun developed defensive strategies that turned every human settlement into a fortress. She coordinated civilian resistance networks, established hidden supply caches, and created communication systems that could operate even if primary military networks were destroyed. But what struck Veltar most was the human response to Catherian casualties. When a damaged Catherian shuttle crashed in a residential area, Colonel Yeon led rescue efforts that saved both human and Catherian lives. Medics led by Dr. Soon treated wounded Catherian soldiers alongside human casualties. This is illogical, Veltar transmitted to War Commander Thekos during a brief communication window. They are treating our wounded soldiers as patients rather than prisoners. Primitive species often display irrational behaviors under stress, Thekos replied dismissively. Continue your observations. Identify their primary command centers for orbital bombardment. But Veltar was no longer sure he could provide that information. Over the past weeks, he had lived among these humans, shared meals with them, and learned to see them as individuals rather than tactical units. The idea of helping to destroy them made him physically uncomfortable. The turning point came when Captain An organized civilian resistance in the occupied territories. Instead of guerrilla warfare, she created networks that provided food, medical care, and shelter to anyone who needed it, including Catherian soldiers who were separated from their units. Why do you help our people? A wounded Catherian pilot asked Dr. Soon as she treated his injuries. Because you are hurt and I am a doctor, Dr. Soon replied simply. That is what doctors do. The pilot stared at her in confusion. In Catherian society, enemies received medical attention only after interrogation and only if they provided useful information. The concept of unconditional medical care was completely foreign to him. Word of human compassion began to spread among the Catherian ground forces. Soldiers reported that human resistance fighters would attack military targets, but provide aid to any Catherian who was wounded or lost. Some Catherian units began to question why they were fighting people who showed more concern for Catherian lives than their own commanders did. Colonel Bo led a particularly dangerous mission to evacuate alien civilians, including Catherian non-combatants who had been abandoned by their own military. When War Commander Thekos ordered the orbital bombardment of civilian targets to force human surrender, Bo's forces rescued Catherian families along with human refugees. Sergeant Nu went even further, sharing scarce medical supplies with Catherian field hospitals when their supply lines were cut. Lieutenant Ra risked court-martial by warning Veltar when Thekos planned to use prohibited chemical weapons against human population centers. Your people are not behaving according to our intelligence reports, Veltar told General In during one of their daily briefings. What did your report say about us? That humans are aggressive, selfish, and will betray each other under pressure. That you lack discipline and will surrender quickly when faced with superior force. General In laughed, but it was not a cruel sound. Well, we are certainly aggressive when defending our families, and we can be selfish about protecting the things we love. As for discipline, he gestured toward the coordination displays showing millions of people following evacuation procedures. rationing supplies and maintaining civil order despite constant bombardment. This is not the behavior of an undisciplined species, Veltar admitted. The war had been going on for 2 weeks when young privates Da and Go made a discovery that changed everything. While helping to repair Veltar's ship, they found detailed technical specifications for Catherian weapons, armor, and tactical systems. This information could save thousands of lives, Private Da said, showing the data to General Wan. Both human and Catherian lives. Private Go added, "If we can end this war quickly, fewer people on both sides will die." They were right. The information contained weaknesses in Catherian technology that could be exploited, but it also contained insights into Catherian tactics and psychology that could lead to a negotiated peace rather than mutual destruction. General Wan looked at Veltar. "This is your people's military intelligence. You could be executed for treason if they discover you shared it with us." "I did not share it," Veltar said carefully. "Your people discovered it while helping to repair my ship. I cannot control what you do with information you find." It was a thin legal distinction, but it was enough to preserve Veltar's position while giving the humans access to crucial intelligence. That night, Veltar faced the hardest decision of his life. General In had asked him to help establish communication with moderate elements in the Catherian fleet. There had to be some commanders who questioned the wisdom of this war, some soldiers who were disturbed by the use of prohibited weapons against civilian targets. If Veltar helped the humans contact these potential allies, he would be committing treason against the Catherian Empire. But if he remained silent, the war would continue until one side was completely destroyed. He thought about Dr. Soon treating wounded Catherian soldiers. He remembered Colonel Bo risking her life to save Catherian civilians. He considered the human children he had seen sharing food with Catherian prisoners. These humans were not conquering the Catherian Empire. They were trying to save it from itself. "I will help you," Veltar told General In. "But we need to find the right people to contact. Not all Catherians think like War Commander Thekos." The secret communication took 3 days to establish. Veltar worked with human technicians Yu and Gil to modify his ship's communication array, creating an encrypted channel that could reach specific individuals in the Catherian fleet without alerting War Commander Thekos. The first contact came from Science Commander Velnara, Veltar's former instructor at the Imperial Academy. Her message was brief and cautious. "Veltar, your reports have raised questions among the fleet's technical staff. Request private discussion." Within hours, more messages arrived. Junior Commander Kethos questioned the use of chemical weapons against civilian targets. Medical Officer Zintal wanted to know why human prisoners were receiving better medical care than Catherian soldiers. Even some senior officers were beginning to express doubts about the mission. "There is growing dissent in our fleet," Veltar explained to General Wan during their planning session. "Many Catherians joined the military to protect our civilization, not to commit genocide against peaceful species. Can we talk to them directly?" General Wan asked, not without exposing them to charges of treason, but there might be another way. That evening, Captain Ai and Lieutenant Na approached Veltar with an idea that was typically human in its boldness and compassion. Instead of trying to defeat the Catherian fleet, they wanted to invite Catherian officers to witness human society for themselves. "We could arrange temporary truces for prisoner exchanges," Captain A explained. "But instead of just exchanging prisoners, we show their officers how we treat people. Let them see what they would be destroying." "War Commander Thekos will never agree to that," Veltar said. "He might if we frame it as an intelligence-gathering opportunity," Lieutenant Na suggested. "Tell him we want to demonstrate our surrender terms. He gets to observe our primitive society up close, and his officers get to see what conquest would actually mean." The plan was risky for both sides. Humans would be exposing their leaders to potential assassination or kidnapping. Catherians who participated risked being influenced by human propaganda and facing punishment when they returned to their ships. But War Commander Thekos agreed to a limited exchange. His arrogance convinced him that witnessing human weakness firsthand would strengthen Catherian resolve and provide valuable intelligence about human infrastructure. The first group of Catherian officers arrived under heavy security: Science Commander Velnara, Medical Officer Zintal, and Communications Specialist Dorith. were escorted by human guards to a field hospital where Dr. Soon was treating casualties from both sides. Velnara watched in silence as Dr. Soon worked on a Catherian soldier with severe burns from a weapons malfunction. The human medical team used their most advanced equipment to save the alien soldier's life, then provided the same level of care to human patients with less serious injuries. "Why do you waste resources on enemy combatants?" Velnara asked Dr. Soon. "They are not enemies when they are on my operating table," Dr. Soon replied without looking up from her work. "They are patients who need help." Medical Officer Zintal examined the human medical procedures with growing amazement. Human medicine was technically primitive compared to Catherian healing technology, but their doctors showed a level of dedication and compassion that was rare in Catherian military medical corps. "In our fleet, medical resources are allocated by rank and strategic value," Zintal confided to Veltar during a break. "These humans treat every patient as if they were the most important person in the galaxy." The second exchange brought Junior Commander Kethos and Tactical Specialist Moreth to observe human civilian evacuation procedures. Colonel Min led them through a temporary refugee center where thousands of displaced humans were being housed, fed and provided with medical care. Kethos expected to find chaos, panic, and evidence of human leaders abandoning their people to save themselves. Instead, he found organized relief efforts managed by volunteers who had given up their own safety to help others. "These people lost their homes, their possessions, everything they worked for," Kethos said to Colonel Min. "Why are they not angry? Why are they not demanding revenge?" "Some are angry," Colonel Min admitted. "But anger does not rebuild homes or feed children. We can be angry later, after we take care of each other." Tactical Specialist Moreth was studying the evacuation logistics when he noticed something that changed his entire perspective on human warfare. The evacuation routes were designed not just to move human civilians to safety, but to avoid areas where Catherian ground forces were operating. "You are deliberately avoiding contact with our troops," Moreth observed. "When possible," Colonel Min confirmed, "but this reduces your tactical flexibility. It would be more efficient to attack our positions and force us to withdraw." "More efficient for winning battles," Colonel Min agreed. "Less efficient for minimizing casualties on both sides. You are fighting a war while trying to protect your enemies." "We are fighting to protect our people," Colonel Min corrected. "That does not require us to become murderers." The most significant exchange involved bringing War Commander Thekos himself to observe what he expected would be human surrender negotiations. General In met him at a neutral location, surrounded by the ruins of a battle-damaged city. Thekos expected to dictate terms to a defeated enemy. Instead, General In presented him with a comprehensive analysis of the war's progress, including detailed casualty figures for both sides and economic projections for post-war reconstruction. These numbers show that continuation of hostilities will result in total destruction of both civilizations, General In said calmly. "Neither humans nor Catherians will survive if this conflict escalates further." "Humans will be destroyed," Thekos corrected. "Catherians will be victorious, will you?" General In activated a holographic display showing the current military situation. "Your fleet has superior technology, but you are fighting on our territory with extended supply lines. Your soldiers are questioning orders to attack civilian targets. Your medical officers are reporting higher casualty rates than expected due to human resistance tactics." The analysis was thorough and disturbingly accurate. Human intelligence had compiled detailed assessments of Catherian fleet capabilities, morale, and logistics. They knew exactly how much the war was costing both sides. "Even if you achieve complete military victory," General In continued, "you will rule over a planet of radiation and ruins. Your fleet will be too damaged to defend against other threats. Your people will inherit a dead world that requires centuries of terraforming to become habitable." "What do you propose?" Thekos asked stiffly. "Mutual benefit instead of mutual destruction," General In replied. "Humans have things Catherians need: agricultural techniques, medical innovations, and social structures that promote stability without oppression. Catherians have things humans need: advanced technology, space travel capabilities, and knowledge of galactic civilization." "You suggest alliance between superior and inferior species?" "I suggest partnership between different species with complementary strengths." The meeting lasted for hours. Thekos found himself debating philosophy, ethics, and military strategy with a human who showed no fear and offered no submission, but also no hatred or desire for revenge. When Thekos returned to his flagship, he brought with him reports from his officers that painted a very different picture of humanity than previous intelligence had suggested. Felnara recommended immediate cessation of chemical weapons use. Zintal requested permission to establish joint medical facilities. Even Kethos suggested that humans might be valuable allies, rather than conquered subjects, but the real turning point came when communications specialist Dorith presented Thekos with intercepts of human communication networks. Instead of military coordination and propaganda, he had found thousands of personal messages between human families, friends, and communities. "They are not discussing how to defeat us," Dorith reported. "They are discussing how to help each other survive, how to rebuild after the war ends, and how to create a better future for their children." "What about revenge against Catherians?" Thekos asked. "Remarkably little mention of revenge, War Commander. Most humans seem more concerned with preventing future conflicts than punishing past enemies." That night, Thekos faced the same choice that Veltar had confronted weeks earlier. He could continue the war according to Catherian military doctrine and achieve a Pyrrhic victory over a dead planet. Or he could consider the possibility that humans might be offering something more valuable than conquest: genuine cooperation between equals. The decision came down to a simple question. What did the Catherian Empire actually want? Resources, territory, and influence could be gained through partnership. Dominance and control could only be maintained through endless warfare. For the first time in his military career, War Commander Thekos began to wonder if there might be a better way to achieve Catherian goals than through conquest and subjugation. The seed of doubt that Veltar had planted was beginning to grow throughout the entire fleet.